Hello everybody, welcome to Midwest Imagery. Today I've got a picture to show you how we can make this from good to even better in just a few short steps in post-processing. In my case that's Photoshop. And this shot was made on the water, backlit, so the subject is a little underexposed, but I wanted the background to be exposed correctly. And that's what happens sometimes when you have to make a decision between getting the shadow detail or the highlight detail. You kind of have to split the difference and know that you can take it into post to fix it. And if you don't have post-processing, then you might have to decide which is the most important part of your image that you want to expose for as close as possible in your camera. And as I've said before, the goal with your photography is to get your exposures, your composition as close as you can in your camera, and that eliminates a lot of work after you're done shooting in post-processing. If you get as close as you can, a lot of times it's just a one-click fix to make your images maybe a little bit better. Photoshop has come a long way, does a lot of the heavy lifting for us, and I will show you that in just a second. So let me get my screen set up and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. And what we see here is this shot is a little bit underexposed. The background looks pretty good. I'm not wild about this building in the far background, and we'll fix that. The first thing we'll do is double click on the thumbnail and open it in Camera Raw. So the first thing I always try to do is just go over here to this auto button and click it, see what this Photoshop thinks it should look like. That doesn't look too bad. Let's zoom in to 100%. Yeah, I don't mind it. He's just a little underexposed. I don't like this. The water spray, the rooster tail in the back looks great. We maybe try to enhance that a little bit too. So let's go ahead and open this by clicking on the Open tab, the Open button on the bottom right hand corner of the Basics tab. And now it should open up into Photoshop. And here we have it. I'm going to zoom in, Command plus, and take a look at it. Again, it looks pretty good. He's just a little underexposed. So what I'm going to do is apply an adjustment just to him. And first I'm going to duplicate this background layer using the keyboard shortcut Command J. Now I'm going to go under my Select menu, which is on the top of my screen, and go down here and ask Photoshop to select this subject. This saves us a lot of times. We don't have to do all the selecting ourselves. Photoshop just does a pretty good job of it now. I'm going to zoom in and just check. I'm at 300%, looking to see if everything's selected that should be. Oh, here's a piece right here that should not be in a part of the selection. So I'm going to grab a selection tool, my lasso, and you notice that it has a minus by the cursor. That just means that we're going to subtract this piece from the selection. And so I will click and hold the click and then just drag along this outline and along this outline here till I meet, let go, and there. Now it's selected good. So this looks good. What I'm going to do then is put this figure on his own layer using that same copy keyboard shortcut Command J. Now there we have the selection. Looks pretty good. What I'm going to do next is change this blend mode to screen. Brighten them up a bit. Let's see what that did. That's already going in the right direction pretty quick. Yeah, I like the way that's going. Looks pretty good. And I'm going to run a blur filter on here. But first, before I do that, when I run this blur filter, it's going to want to blur everything. So I'm going to reselect this, by holding the command key and clicking on this thumbnail right here. And now he's reselected. But now that he's selected, the blur will only run, filter will only run on what's selected. So I'm going to invert the selection. I'm going to hold my Shift, Command, and the letter I. And what this does is it makes all the background be selected and he is safe. So what I'm going to do here is go under my filter menu, under blur, and choose radial blur. And I'm going to give it a lot of blur, way too much, 10. And click OK, that'll be just perfect. There we go. Now we can see that that did a pretty darn good job. Let's try to lower the opacity a little bit. We maybe don't need it quite that harsh. I'm going to cut it down somewhere around 50% or 45. So we still have quite a bit of droplets showing. So we can see the difference if I turn this layer off and on. I'm going to rename this layer by double clicking on the words layer 1, radial blur, and 10 so I can remember what setting I used. Now let's take a look at it. We can deselect everything. Now there's two ways. You can either go up under the select menu and choose deselect, or notice that there's a keyboard shortcut here. And since I'm here, I'll just deselect it. Okay, now we're starting to get somewhere. Let's take a look at how we can get rid of this background here. And I will put a blank layer on top of the layer stack. And the blank layer is the icon that's right next to the trash can. It's a little square with a plus in it. Now I have a blank layer here and I'm just going to say retouch. And I think I'll use my clone stamp tool, which is looks like a little rubber stamp or the letter S on your keyboard. And with the clone stamp tool, what you'll do is hold your Option key down and you notice that the cursor changes to a crosshair. Then I click once. Let's see, I'll start over here. And then I'll click once and that sampled that area under the cursor. So if I move you can see that there's trees under there. And then I'll just click a few times, paint a couple little places in here. And then I'm going to sample a different area, like over here, click, and then we're going to start getting rid of this house. A couple more times. What I'm clicking in several different places because I want to avoid showing repeating patterns. If we can help it, for the most part we can. I don't want to get too far into the rooster tail. And we'll do something like that. And we'll do something like that. And something like that. Might fix that little area there. Let's go over and help this out a little bit. Maybe we'll put a piece like this. kind of like that. We'll call that good. And so I might minimize this dock a little bit too. So let's just click here. Call that good. That looks better already. Here's the before. Here's the after. Now one last thing that we can do is create a merge layer. All of these layers merged into one on top of the layer stack. Shift, Option, Command, E. And there's our merged layer. And I'll rename that merged. I'm going to blur this filter, use a filter for blur, but this time I'm going to use Gaussian blur, and we'll crank that way too high. And you know by now that that'll be just perfect. So when I change this blend mode from normal to soft light, it really gives us a little bit more contrast and detail. But I think I'm going to lower the opacity of this layer a bit too, probably somewhere around 50 or 60%. Kind of like that. And let's zoom out, take a look at that now. I'm also going to put a layer mask on this merged layer because I don't want the foreground here to be this blurred. So layer mask, here it is. Brush tool, letter B. Make sure that since I'm on a white layer mask, I'm going to use a black brush, and I'm just going to paint. I'll make my brush larger using the right bracket key, and I'm just going to paint the water. Get rid of that blur. Kind of like that. And I maybe get rid of a little bit of this blur right here, just on the edge. Let's see what that looks like. I think that's it. So let's take a look. Hold the Option key and click on this background layer eyeball. Turns all the layers off. So even though this on first glance looks pretty good right out of the camera, we see that just a few minutes in Photoshop can make this even better. Now you maybe don't need the merged blur layer. Let's see what it looks like without it. And that looks pretty good too. Let's see what it looks like without the radial blur. And that looks pretty good too. I'll let you decide which way you like it better, with the radial blur effect or without it. We'll touch it down there, something like that, and I think we're good. Now if you wanted to, you could try one more step, make another blank layer on top. Let's fill this with, oh, this orange looks pretty good. Let's fill this layer with the orange color. Option delete, and then lower the opacity. Yeah, I don't know if that does anything or not. I kind of like it better that way, so delete that layer and call it good. There we go. Once again, from this to this. Let me get this screen shut down and I'll be right back. Okay, there's an easy way to take an okay picture and make it even a little bit better. Now this picture was backlit and my camera is seeing all that brightness behind the subject, and I'm setting the exposure for that because I want to preserve the detail in that background behind the skier, and I also know that I can open him up, or the subject in there, to brighten him up a bit. The other bits that we did were just kind of icing on the cake. It's all subjective whether you want to enhance the rooster tailing, get rid of that house in the background, do a little blur filter so that the saturation and contrast gets a little bit more pop to it. But we have all these tools available to us in Photoshop, and as you can see here, it really doesn't take that long when we do what we can to get the images exposed as best and close as we can in the camera. And that's what it's all about. We're making our pictures as close as we can. If you don't have Photoshop, hey, this picture is going to be good right out of the gate. In the case if you don't have Photoshop, then I might try to bracket my exposures here, where I would make one shot underexposed and one shot at indicated and one shot overexposed. And then you could decide which way you like it better in a situation like this. Because in this picture, in a case like this where we have this strong backlight, there's always going to be a little bit of a silhouette on the foreground. And if you don't do post-processing, bracketing is another way that you can help your pictures be as best as they can be. And that's going to do it for today. I want to thank you for watching. I look forward to seeing you soon.